It's time for some straight talk. Using your phone, yeah, the one right in your hand, could cost up to 30% less every month. Got your attention, don't I? With Straight Talk's Keep Your Own Phone SIM Kit, you can keep that phone, your same 4G LTE network and number, but pay less. That's more money in your pocket. The ultimate unlimited plan is just $55 a month. Straight Talk Wireless. Only at Walmart.
Savings may vary. Video typically streams at DVD quality. A month equals 30 days. Refer to the latest terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com.
You are listening to Team Left Jab Boxing Radio, bringing you the best in the world of boxing. No rules, no filters. Real boxing minds, real boxing breakdowns. www.leftjaballnightboxing.com.
Welcome to Team Left Jab Boxing Radio. We'll be talking to Tony Myers, a.k.a. FMW Leatherface, Chainsaw Tony. Let's bring him in.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing, Tony? It's Sam from Team Left Jab Radio.
Excellent. How you doing tonight?
Going pretty good. How about yourself?
Pretty good.
Well, I definitely want to thank you for coming on. You know, I've been a fan of yours for a while, and, you know, just a pleasure having you on. And, you know, I got a whole bunch of questions here. You know, I've listened to your other podcasts over the years, and you sent me the link, and it kind of refreshed my memory on some of them from a few years ago. So I got some basic questions. I didn't want to hit the same stories, you know, that you've told a few times already. So, you know, I'm ready to go when you are.
Sure, man. Fire away.
All right, cool. So, you know, Mr. Pogo, obviously that's an influence on you in your early career. What's the earliest memory that you have of, I guess, meeting him? And also, how did he treat you in the beginning?
1994 was when I debuted in Japan, and I was dwelling around the Memphis territory, and it was like, after a few months there, was like, hey, kid, you're going to go to Puerto Rico and come back. 3 months later, hey, man, Japan. And, like, the Puerto Rico thing happened through Ken Wayne and Steve Dunn, Billy Travis, all those guys were down there. But the thing for Japan, it was get a passport, get ready. Eddie Gilbert had set that up. And so in 94, Pogo was doing some of the smaller shows. One of the shows he did was IWA Kokushiya, which was ran by Goro Surumi and his son. And on there they had just like a whole giant undercard of guys that, you know, the Demonoyas, the Yellow Mummy, the Black Mummy, the White Mummy, Uchu Meijin Powers, XXX, and just a bunch of bizarro gimmicks. Basically like alien invaders from outer space and that kind of weird stuff. But it was their way to fill out the roster and use multiple guys, you know, en masse. And I saw Pogo one night there, and I just couldn't believe how much English he had spoken. And, you know, he had asked me, you know, general questions. What are you doing out here? And he had seen me because another promotion I was working for was Purisu Baka, which was ran by Rio Mago. And he was using basically the same roster, and him and Pogo were always tight. And Pogo's like, you know, I'm still working with FMW, and he would see us coming there because, like, Goro Surumi and Rio Mago both were, at the time, petitioning and trying to get themselves hooked up with FMW because FMW was coming all the way up. So I met Pogo, and, you know, I was just, like I said, I was blown away by how much English the guy spoke. And he said, you know, one day I'm going to open up my own company. I'm going to start my own company. And I'd heard that from a lot of people before, but I'd kind of lost touch with Pogo because it was like, you know, no real cell phones back then or nothing but social media. But I kept crisscrossing like paths with him. And, you know, he helped get me into Big Japan Wrestling. And sure enough, the year 2000 is when he started up his own promotion, WWS. So you're talking about a 6-year stretch before I exclusively settled with Pogo's WWS World Wing Spear promotion.
Right. That's awesome. You know, and, you know, you were obviously a big fan growing up. Now, were you like a WWF fan? Were you into kind of the hardcore matches before they really, you know, caught on? You know, like, let's say when ECW came around and stuff around that same time, 94, 95. Who were you a big fan of growing up?
Growing up, I mean, if you were Iron Mike Sharp or if you were Hulk Hogan, it didn't matter to me. It was like, wow, it's a wrestler, And then by the time I started picking and choosing my favorites, I was reading Dave Meltzer's newsletter, and I heard, before that, I had seen the pictures in the smaller magazines of exploding barbed wire and the rings over in Japan, and I thought, like, how can wrestling get to that? Like, how could it become like so cerebral and so crazy that a match has to end like that? And I just got fascinated when I saw the pictures of Onita bleeding and Pogo stabbing him. I just thought, like, how does this happen? But I was always a fan of the alternative because I grew up a WWF fan and grew up a Jersey boy, so I always wanted to see like wrestling outside the box, like what it's this bizarre genre thing that appeals to this weird, like, cultish type of person that would understand it for what it is, the entertainment aspect with this, that, and the other. But I just started becoming a fan of like what alternatively wrestling has to offer, and if that included death matches or if it included bizarre space creatures coming to invade Japan and and guys like guys like Goro Surumi and his son and Ryuma Go defending the intergalactic championship of the universe against all these alien invaders. It's like, how do these people feel about it? It was just so strange and so bizarre. I just had to find out more about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And this is a question that as soon as I knew that you were coming on, I was like, I have to ask Tony about this. Now, from what I understand, Eddie Gilbert got you into Memphis wrestling, and you knew Dennis Carluzzo, right?
Oh yeah.
What was your experience with Carluzzo? What did you think of him? I know Shane Douglas, had a lot of bad things to say about him, and a lot of the guys from ECW, they had kind of a back and forth with him back in the day, and a lot of them had some bad things to say about him. But you'd Cornette and guys like Jerry Lawler had good things to say about him. What was your experience? What kind of guy was he?
I mean, he was always straight up with me. I started attending in shows when I was like 14, 15 years old. And, I had my debut match when I was 15 with absolutely no ring experience. It was just me attending shows that were so independent and really just so awful that they would just allow a 15-year-old kid to get in there for a battle royal. But with Dennis, I saw the names he brought in. I was, when I would go to the John Rezzi wrestling convention and pick up like different wrestling, because like I said, I was always like looking outside of wrestling, like what does this bizarre thing have to offer? I discovered the other territories. When I first latched on to Memphis wrestling, I was like fascinated. I was just a huge Eddie Gilbert and Jerry Lawler fan. So Dennis Carluzzo started using Jerry Lawler, started using Eddie Gilbert, and eventually, I started, as the date itself, I started making Eddie Gilbert like 6-hour VHS tapes of all the stuff from Continental and everywhere else. And Eddie was just blown away that I had all that footage and everything. And, what wound up happening was he allowed me to start hauling his bags and getting them from the airport and just basically any way I could get in to fit in.
Yeah. All right. So you have some good experience with him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just like Pogo, we would have our falling outs here and there, but it was like with Eddie, I never really had like a bad falling out with the guy. It was just touch and go. I was a Jersey boy. He was down in Memphis, but he was always somewhere,
Right.
And
right.
With Dennis Carluzzo, he just represented that old time wrestling like promoter, that didn't take anything off of anybody and, just kind of did things his way. And hey, I'm the owner, and hey, Tony, I'm no longer working with this jerk. Or, I don't know what kind of language I could use on here, but
no, you can curse. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, with him was saying, hey, Tony, this fucking jerk off is fucking me around. I'm going out on my fucking own. Fuck him. And then, basically the clique back then of guys trying to get somewhere and trying to wrestle. I broke in around the same wrestling school as like Nunzio, Little Guido, Devin Storm, Inferno Kid, Tommy Fierro, that whole Jersey clique.
Yeah.
So it was just a matter of time before I crossed paths with Dennis Carluzzo. We were all trying to work our way up to getting on Dennis's shows and getting booked and and all that. And then Memphis came calling before I could really do anything with Dennis.
Right. So around around the 93, more than 94 time, and by 95 it was really hot. Were you ever trying to get into ECW? Because that seems like that would be right up your alley, especially back then, and it's in the States on top of it.
You would think, but back then I was in my glory of walking into that studio and looking up and seeing them wrestling Sid Vicious or wrestling Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee in a tag match. Like by then, me being such a humongous Memphis fan, I was living the dream there. I was like, if I'm getting squashed on TV, it's like, I'm such a fan deep down inside that I'm freaking out that it's like, hey, I wrestled the Bruise Brothers this week, or hey, Jeff Jarrett just beat me in a match, or and, they would have the WWF guys that were coming through rehabbing too. So so you that's a lot of big names. I mean, that's definitely, you get starstruck a little, I guess, when you see these guys coming in and out. You really probably not even thinking about ECW at that point, especially when they were just starting to really get hot. Yeah, exactly. And I just thought, like, that's an awful long traveling way up there. And, I was like, what are they really going to do with a guy that's just getting his brains kicked in Memphis TV live every Saturday morning? So, and, I enjoyed the ECW product. I mean, when I was leaving, I remember sitting there with Jason Knight. And it was at Pete McKay's Lower East Side Gym in East Manhattan, New York. So we would all go there and basically just wrestle for a plate of food because we're all trying to get our name out there. And it was a place where you could try out a lot of new gimmicks. It's where I met Fat Frank and Kane from Jersey, All Pro Angel, and all those guys. And my thing was that, like, Jason was sitting there and he was showing us the three-way match with Funk Sabu. The night the line was crossed, Funk Sabu, Shane Douglas. And, even then I saw that it was being a hotter and hotter product. It just, with Memphis, I mean, I knew I was close to the WWF. And not only that, I just felt that there would be opportunities there for me. Eddie, at the time, I was all for Eddie. And, Eddie was in my ear. And I was like, well, give this Memphis thing a shot. What could it really hurt? I could always go back home to Jersey, right?
Right. And I'm sure that, like you just said, you never know. I mean, there was more connections there than a place like ECW. You might have actually had a shot of making it to WWE or something, WWF at the time.
Yeah, I was under the impression I was going to Wing with Eddie and Doug, and then Eddie had us going out with Wing promotion. So when I got there, they were like, "Oh, you're a young boy, man. You're going to the dojo." They're like, "The only reason you were booked was because of Eddie, and we don't have any kind of anything with him right now." So it was like, you're a young guy. What are you going to do? It's like, you're going to have. Yeah, and I didn't know, but they were sending me to the Pro Wrestling Crusaders, PWC, which is George and Kenji Takano. They sent me to their dojo because they were just starting up with PWC. So, yeah, and then from there, that in itself ties into the whole thing with Go Ryuma, his promotion, and with Goro Surumi and his son and their IWA Kokoshia. Because it seemed like Go Ryuma was coming up with like a different promotion and a different name for his promotion like every week. He would find another money backer. He would find somebody else. And next thing you know, we were Go Ryuma Pro, then we were Ryuma Pro, then we were Purisu Baka, and just like several names. Go Gungden, which became a name of one of his shows that he ran that everybody thought was the name of his promotion. He would just find different money backers. But by then I'd had a foot in the door with Japan.
So see, the question I have is, as far as going to Japan and now you've pretty much been there ever since. I mean, it's really amazing. What was that something that you wanted to do, or was it kind of like a surprise that just came out of, the opportunity just presented itself and you just went and you've been there, for a very long time? Or was that something that you wanted to pursue?
it was something that I would have, at the time, I just felt like I would give my life for this. I would see Mr. Pogo and I'd see Onita and I'd see their unique matches, and I saw that, I was like, these guys could wrestle each other when they're like 90 years old, because look at the style that they're doing. It's not like a compression of the spine, and it's still fascinating, and just the way that they were able to tell the stories to the Japanese people, and really simplistic, of just trying to shove somebody into something that explodes or whatever. But it was all the unique type of gimmick matches that they were coming up with. I was fascinated by the culture. I was fascinated by the language, and I wanted to know, like, what kind of hostility is built up to where, because obviously it struck a chord with the audience. They were drawing more and more people as time went on. I mean, two were legitimately selling out baseball stadiums together. And it's just kind of the way things worked out. Like, I never thought, I always knew that, like, I would have to work my way up to main event, but I never thought, like, in a million years that I would be, quote unquote, good enough to, or maintain that, or that I would even be given the opportunity to.
Right, that's amazing.
I was just happy.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I was just so happy to be there. And then I guess when the opportunity presented itself, it was, his dream come true all over again. So. Right.
And, as far as Onita goes, you wrestled him a lot. I know that. I mean, even recently, I've heard you saying that you wrestled him a lot over the last couple of years. What type of guy is he? Is he an approachable guy? Is he a nice guy? Is he, he's obviously a legend, but, how is he to work with? And, how even today, at his older age, how is he, towards like the newer wrestlers that come in and stuff?
It's funny because so much of what was happening to him, like, we couldn't even discuss anything with him. We were told just meet him, shake his hand, and get the hell out of there. That and the whole FMW roster, because Go Ryuma was terrified that one of the American people might say the wrong thing. And it was also combined with Jesse Barr and all those guys from the promotion out in Portland. It was Bruiser Brian Cox and Dane Rush and like a whole bunch of those guys that were also under the mask. And more times than not, it wasn't that he was nervous that the Americans, it's too, if we latched onto something bigger and better, we would leave, and he wanted people to be loyal to him, talking about Go Ryuma. But he knew that he needed Onita, because him and Onita, before FMW, when they did the Pioneer Senshi promotion together, it was those two on top that were drawing just really strong crowds, especially for an independent. And they were one of the very first, like, mainstream independents over there. If you don't want to count UWFI and IWE, that was before that. But even in gathering up the history, I knew it going into it. It was like, very first time I met Onita, he had girls all around him. Everybody wanted his ear. So it was like, all right, I got to get out of there. And then I think it was kind of humbling once he left FMW and started up his own Onita Pro, like in the late 90s. Even then, it was like, you saw him take a big step back. He wasn't nearly as busy. He had time to settle down with people. But, he just kept seeing me around. He kept seeing my face. And then, when I worked for Pogo would bring him in all the time. So it was like, it's just truly like how the Japanese folks are. They'll get to know you. That's cool. But you have to earn their trust. And that's the way that it was with Onita. And I just saw as the years went on, he just became friendlier and nicer and even more kinder. And two, he knows as he's getting older, he knows that, there's only so much that he can do. And I remember, because I got the exact same answer out of Pogo that I did with Onita. Last year, and I'm not over-exaggerating, I had well over, probably closing on 200 matches, like, against Onita. Main event, like, every single night. And so one night I just had his ear, and just for the hell of it, I just threw it out there. I go, what makes you like somebody like me, or what makes you, why am I the guy that's wrestling you every night? Why wouldn't it be any other countless Americans? And he was like, hey, when I was in America, somebody did for me, and I'm just doing for you. He's like, besides, you're not a kid anymore. I know that you're more mature. I know that you're more settled in your thoughts. And it just blew me away because that was the exact same explanation I got from Pogo.
Right. That's true respect right there. You got to respect the guy who thinks like that. That's for sure. It's an amazing story. You know, I'm actually going to get a few answers that I've wanted to know since I was a kid, and I've always seen, you know, the monster gimmicks over in Japan, and you know, you have the Leatherface gimmick, FMW Leatherface, obviously. So the first question, before I get to some of the ones I've, you know, never gotten an answer for a long time, is first off, how did you get the Leatherface gimmick?
In 2003, Mr. Pogo had the second Leatherface, Rick Patterson, the guy from Vancouver, who's now living in Winnipeg. Him and his brother run a farm on the outside of Winnipeg. It's just gorgeous out there, what they've done with the land and everything. Pogo tried to get a hold of him because he had brought him in 2 years before, and they completely packed out Kumagaya. It's a bunch of DVDs. It's on a couple of DVDs that I have, but somebody uploaded it to YouTube, and you can see when Pogo goes to wrestle Leatherface in his WWS, they drew like 3,000 people. So Pogo's like, all right, I know what to do. We're going to move it to right by Kumagaya is Kagahara. And he's like, we're going to move it over there, and we're going to rent out that entire arena next year. And it was like he just kept missing that communication with Rick Patterson. Rick was busy doing, I can't remember what exactly he was doing. So Pogo said, all right, well, let me bring in the original Leatherface. And he's like, you know, it's not going to have the same kick as it would have, you know, being that he wrestled, you know, the second Leatherface. He was like, but the fans will get the gist of it. And I was privy to all this because, you know, I was working around Pogo. I was helping him hang posters. I was working in his office. So they tried to get a hold of Mike Kirshner, and they were having issues with his visa. So then Pogo just looks over there at me, and he goes, hey, look, you know, you got the size already. He's like, you know, just worry about your upper body because you're going to be having a haul around that chainsaw and everything. And he was like, let's go to the hardware store, get you a good chainsaw. You know, he busted my balls with that thing forever. You know, as a joke, he got a handsaw, and I'm like, what is this? And he was like, it's your saw. You don't like it? And I'm like, I can't use it. And he starts laughing at me. But yeah, in 2003 was that was the very first time that I was doing the Leatherface gimmick for Pogo, and I couldn't stand the mask, and I hated the wig. But by then he had been using me as Jason part-time, you know, for a lower end monster thing. You know, he would always come to me and be like, would you mind pulling double duty? You know, I mean, who am I to tell him no?
Right.
Not only that, I wanted to get better. I thought that I wasn't nearly as good as some of the other rosters. So I was like, I'm just going to need to work more. And I was like, can't really communicate with these guys like I'd like to. But, you know, it was the same thing that it was with IWA Kokoshiya. It's like wherever I could wrestle, whatever mask I could don, you know, I'm here, please use me. And so we were off to the races in 2003 with the Leatherface thing. It's just, he chose to use it sparingly, you know, even in WWS. He was like, if you use it too much, people are going to wonder, where is he when he's not here?
Right.
You know,
I thought, and I'm pretty sure that I'm mistaken now that I hear that story. I thought you kind of had to be, you know, I guess anointed to wear that mask. I guess you are if you're chosen by Pogo, right?
Right, because then it was Onita too that was like, hey, we got a Leatherface around here. And it was like,
yeah,
you know, I would have the criticism where people yearn for the original, or, you know, they want the second one or whatever. And, you know, for years and years, it feels like it's taken forever to get anybody to accept or see through or see the good in me. But, you know, I pretty much, I would try and do anything under the sun. Combine the charisma of the first one coming out and combine that with maybe the moveset of the second one, because, you know, you do all the moonsaults and everything.
Yeah.
Kind of put my own spin on it from there. But yeah, the anointing was Onita himself and Pogo as well, you know, telling me, hey, you know, it's your time to step up. And as the years went on, you know, God bless him, man. Kirshner's 61 now, and he's going for a tour this summer. And he's telling people, he's like, I'm 61. Like, this is getting ridiculous. And the same thing with Rick Patterson, you know, on a local basis, he's still going strong, but to get him to come out and tour is really difficult.
Right.
Lucky for me, I guess you could say I'm only 44.
Yeah. And, you know, are there like fake ones out there? Like I heard on another podcast that you did, one of the hosts asked you about a super Leatherface, and I think I saw that a time or two on YouTube and stuff. So who are they? Are those just guys who just got a mask? I mean, you can just get the mask off online and stuff like that and get a chainsaw and call yourself that. Are those basically knockoff versions?
In Japan or here stateside?
In Japan, I think is where I saw it, actually.
Oh yeah, in Japan. It's like right now they've already laid the groundwork, and everybody knows it's Hamano that's under the mask as Nisei leather, which Nisei translated from Japanese is fake leather. So it's like right out the chute, I know that I come in, I wrestle Takase on top for the WWS title, and man, I feel like at this point I just about give anything to hold that heavyweight title again. But yeah, it was like they knew that if they laid the groundwork for that people would dump all over. And I mean, the Japanese fans are sophisticated; they know the real from the fake, and so you know. For them, it's great because then they get to bring me back as a baby face. I'm happy because I get to sell more T-shirts and everything else. And, you know, it becomes one of those things where the Japanese fans are, you know, they're wise enough, sure enough to know that it's a Japanese guy under the mask doing the Leatherface gimmick. So it's laying the groundwork for what eventually, you know, real Leatherface comes back to feud with him.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, you know, are you a fan of those movies, you know, back in the day, Leatherface and Jason and Freddy?
Yeah, it's the funny thing that of all of them, that of all the horror and of all the monsters and everybody, I'm the biggest fan of Leatherface because, you know, he was the one that had such a personality amongst everybody else. He was always changing his mask. He was always changing his clothes. He was always changing his mood. And, it became a lot of fun, especially like if you want to get into the DDT and the 666 stuff I've done. That's been so much fun because there's so much you could do with the gimmick.
That's awesome. I'm a huge fan of them as well. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole world that you can do with the gimmick and with the chainsaw and doing goofy high spots with it and that kind of thing. And that was one of those things that like Kirshner just wouldn't compromise with. Where it's like, of course, I'm a little more flexible. And you know, I went to the extent of when I got the latest mask, like 4 different masks, but the one that I'm using almost all the time now, it's pretty much a paid tribute to Hayabusa. It's a Hayabusa style mask where the top is all cut out, and that's my real hair under there. So I knew that with the entire Chainsaw Tony and with the Leatherface thing, that nobody would be able to clone. They would know that it's really me and the real me. And, especially with the real hair and everything. And it was when we concluded the one tour that right before Sapporo that Onita did the whole gimmick where he went to the media and he said, "This guy here, I've wrestled him dozens of times. I already know who he is." He's like, "In fact, everybody knows me." He's like, "Don't call this guy Leatherface. Call him Chainsaw Tony. That's your name." And it was a whole backdrop. Really, it was just a whole backdrop of bringing in Chainsaw Charlie, you know, Terry Funk, and then Pogo.
Yeah.
We were going to be off to the races with that, but Pogo's health had faded, as well as Terry Funk, who called and told Onita, he's like, I'm just not up for it, you know?
Right.
He felt that he looked terrible in his...
the stock.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just kind of... Yeah, I've rambled.
That's all right. I was actually going to ask you that. I was going to say, you know, how did, you know, so what's the deal? Are you FMW Leatherface over there and Chainsaw Tony over here, or are you Chainsaw Tony? It's a little confusing, I guess, for especially fans who, you know, are new to you.
It is. It's kind of like when people refer to me as Memphis wrestler, Tennessee independent wrestler, Tony Myers, and I'm like, I'm a Jersey boy. I was born and raised here. It's like I lived in Memphis 17 years, but no, with the whole thing coming out of that, like the Chainsaw Tony thing really, really stuck because, like I said, there's been two incarnations of Leatherfaces, and even when we were doing the Wing versus FMW feud. It's like one of my best buddies. He goes to my church, and it's like the two of us have been like really good friends for the past 2 decades. Ichiro Yaguchi, who showed up with us at CCW last summer. Like he was Leatherface, and then Gashigawara, he was Leatherface. Like a Japanese Leatherface. So it was like Onita's idea, my idea was, well, if we have a Chainsaw Tony, we don't have to worry about, which leather is it going to be, or is it going to be the fake Leatherface, or is it going to be super leather? Is it going to be the second Leatherface? And they just dealt with the whole Chainsaw Tony thing, because they don't have a word for a chainsaw over in Japan. They call it chainsaw. So it's like, that's more of an official stamp of approval. And, it was Onita's idea. Pogo's idea was sin leather, because he wanted me to be like the sickest of all sick, I'll eat your blood, Leatherface. But I think actually what Pogo was trying to say is shin leather. And I remember having the longest discussion with him, and he goes, no, like sin, like bad. And I go, yeah, but shin is like new, like the newest. And Pogo was like, I like sin better. And then later on he goes, I messed up the poster, I put sin. And I was like, you told me that you wanted sin. And he was like, I think Shin would have been a better name. No, but the with the confusion, it was like when Pogo went to the media and did the whole Chainsaw Tony angle, and then I attacked him and everything. And then, of course, we patched up, went to CCW together, and then 2 days after I came back from Japan, I turned on him again. And the whole explanation was, you out me under my mask and tell everybody I'm Tony Myers and that you wrestled me at Pogo's, and how dare you blow my identity, but I'll roll with it. Okay, I'm Chainsaw Tony, and it was just a way to say, hey, let's do something. It's the Leatherface gimmick, but let's do something a little different. Like, this guy's going to talk different. He's going to speak in some Japanese, and clearly he's not Japanese. That was the whole idea behind it. And, to this day, I'd rather just Chainsaw Tony, just to cut down on, like I said, the prior confusion where you brought up to me that there's even like Leatherfaces over here in the States.
Yeah. Do you go by FMW Leatherface though? For I guess the older fans that remember you as that.
Yeah, FMW Leather. Like when I do independents out there, it's FMW Leather or Leatherface, Chainsaw Tony or
Chainsaw Tony.
Put me on a poster. Yeah, they'll put me on a poster to remind people, like, yeah, this is the guy that wrestled Onita a whole bunch last year.
Yeah.
And they'll bill me as FMW Leather, but then announce me as Chainsaw Tony on my way to the ring.
Right.
Which, of course, that character, he hears that and he goes nuts. And even here stateside, people will put, like, FMW Leather, but then they'll put Tony Myers next to it. And I'm like, oh, man. But why am I wearing his mask?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It's definitely very interesting. And one more question about the Japanese and the gimmick. And this is something this is one of the questions that I was talking about before that I've wondered for a long time. Why do they like the American horror film icons so much over there? I mean, they've done Leatherface, Jason, Freddy Krueger, probably a few others that I don't even know about. But are they just fans of those movies, or do they just like the gimmicks?
Right, because the monster is like the ultimate, like, evil, like, and if he's under a mask, it makes it even more frightening. And on top of it, it's like, Japan's the size of Minnesota. It's like 600 miles, the entire country, and they're surrounded by nothing but water, like on an island. And for them, it's like, with how low their crime rate is, and considering that there's like 7 people wanted at large, like, how do you get an entire society to behave like that, And I think for them, when they find out about killers or somebody that's that evil, it really piques their interest. And I mean, even today in a lot of the towns, I'm on my way to the ring, you'll see people just run and jump out of their chairs.
Yeah.
One guy got out of his wheelchair and hobbled away. I was just blown away by that. But
wow.
Yeah, it's like, just wanted to touch on something real quick that you had brought up. About the Leatherface gimmick and about being, it was given to me by Mr. Pogo. It was given to me by Onita, and it was with the blessing of others. It wasn't like I just went out and got a mask and got a chainsaw, and I wouldn't have
Yeah.
thought about doing it unless it wasn't somebody with a lot of power and prominence to, and Onita himself just thought that there was so many layers that we could go through, and he did his best, booking wise, to come up with like a different angle every night of coming in there of if I lost in this town, I'm just going to come back with more fire and be more pissed off, and that kind of stuff.
Right.
But to me, unless you're christened by it or given it by somebody, I mean, it's so cheap if someone just goes out there and says, "Hey, I'm Leatherface." Like,
Right.
it doesn't
Right.
hold that much water.
No, definitely. I mean, you got the ultimate anointation by, Pogo and Onita, basically tapping you to be Leatherface. So, and you've put, not only that, but you've put in your time now. I mean, you've been doing this since 2003. That's a long time. So, you're one of the big three, and that's freaking awesome. Now, do you like doing the monster gimmicks? Like, in other words, if you're sitting here, let's say a few years from now or whatever, when you retire and you think back to your whole career, and there's a lot of wrestling that you've done without those gimmicks. Are you going to think back and say, I liked wrestling those gimmicks better, or are you going to say, I kind of like being myself in the ring better than those gimmicks?
Yeah, in 2015, I had the ultimate opportunity, and I took advantage of it. Pogo's whole idea is, he goes, we're going to bring back the WWS heavyweight title. And he goes, but to get that world appeal, he goes, what we're going to do is, you win it in America and you bring it back here. And he goes, that'll give it that worldly appeal. Like, this guy's American, he's bringing it. And he goes, no mask, no nothing. And it was his way of saying, like, hey, it's Tony Myers after all. And I mean, that's after doing so many gimmicks. We did the whole thing where for an entire summer, Jason ran in and left Onita laying and would kick him and beat him up and leave him laying. And then Onita would start to make a comeback, and I'd bail. And then finally it came to where Ken Kataya, who also does who for the longest time, when I wasn't there, he was always doing the Jason gimmick. So he's in the ring wrestling Onita, and everyone's thinking it's the big blow-off, and then the second Jason, which was me, hits the ring, beats down Onita, and then takes off the mask. So it was like, and that was the year before, going into being Pogo's like heavyweight champion. But his whole idea behind me being the heavyweight champion, no gimmick, no nothing, red and black tights, and just black knee pads and red and black boots was, hey, after all, it is this guy, and you've known it all. People had their suspicion all along, but we never confirmed it. It was just one of those weird things in Japan of, who this guy is, he's been around here forever. I did the first WWS show back in 2000 and did 1 million gimmicks and wore 100 hats since. But it was the whole idea, from Pogo to say, hey, it's him after all. He doesn't need a gimmick. He never really needed a gimmick. And I think, like, maybe that, because it was Pogo's decision to put me at the helm of the ship, and then, main eventing some of WWS's house shows where Pogo and Onita are actually on the undercard. And it's me and Takase going at each other every night. And, it's with something like that, I think that was his ultimate praise of, putting me at the helm of his ship, saying that's my heavyweight champion. And I remember telling the boys, I remember telling Pogo, I go, these guys are going to hate me. They're going to think I'm the biggest ass on this planet, Who am I when there's all these native Japanese guys that have busted their ass when I wasn't there for WWS? Who am I to, have a heavyweight title? But I thought it was such a neat backdrop that Takase becomes a heavyweight champion, and he's done one hell of a run with the belt since, like, for the last 2 years. And when Pogo would get his deals, like over in Taiwan, and hook up with the promoter out there, and the guys would go tour over there, it just continued to give it that more like worldly appeal of being like a world heavyweight title in some kind of way. It was defended elsewhere. But he did the best that he could with it. We're not WWS, World Wing Spirit, even today's current FMW. No, we're not selling out baseball stadiums, and we know it. It's us just giving us best effort that we got left in us, and for a lot of us, we're old, we got bad knees, and still giving it what we can, still giving it what we got. There's a lot of criticism, a lot of scrutiny out there about that, but it's, what do we do? Do we tell people, oh yeah, we're the better, we're the super wing promotion, we're the greater FMW,
Right.
It's one of those things that goes without saying.
Right. Interesting. And, another thing I wanted to ask you about is, last year when Onita came back to the States and he wrestled Tremont over here, and then, they wound up going back to Japan and doing it again. What did you think of the American version that they did over here? I guess they couldn't go all out with the explosives and stuff like that, but it seemed like they got enough in, though, right?
Yeah, I know that going in, DJ had a world of problems as far as zoning laws, this, that, and the other. I thought of every conceivable thing I could under the sun, because 2 weeks out of the thing, and Onita's on his way here, and Wild 7, who he wrestled under a mask as Wild 7. Takashi, he's one of the better friends that I have. He was saying, man, this thing's got dud written all over it. Like, you guys can't do explosives in America, and especially not the level of the explosives that we've done in FMW. It's like, this is going to look bad. And I just thought of everything conceivable. I didn't want Onita to look bad in any kind of way. But then what I realized at the last minute is Onita is using it as a backdrop to bring back the rematch to Japan. I think the fans here are sophisticated enough that they understood it was impossible to pull off. I mean, even if it was advertised, they thought that they could at least give the fans enough, and then the thing with the 6-man is, I think so many fans knew it going into it, because Onita hasn't done a singles match since he wrestled my buddy Naoshi Sano for the Sano's Produce, and also it was like a DDT show that Onita wound up doing another singles match with him. He hasn't done singles matches with since, and it's his age, it's his knees, and it's everything tied into it. But it's like, I'm not defensive or I'm not making excuses, but there was really a real reason for so much of the way that things had to go down with CZW.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, and then going into it and realizing, man, we painted ourselves in the corner because we guaranteed these people explosives, and there's no way zoning laws are making it like impossible to do.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I remember, I'm just thinking back to like the original promo that they had put out, and it basically just showed Onita over there in Japan, and the whole cage is blowing up and stuff. And I remember saying, where are they going to do that? I mean, that's not really going to happen here. And they wound. I still thought it was cool though. I mean, they did the exploding bats. I mean, you had to be realistic, and I mean, you knew that they weren't going to explode huge things here in America. It's just not going to happen. But the bats were good though. I mean, and like you said, it just set up for the rematch anyway. And if for the fans that criticized it was a 6-man tag or whatever, like you said, Onita doesn't do singles anymore. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, and if you look closely in like the opening seconds of the match, when he goes to go outside with Tremont, Onita completely rolls his ankle. And I just,
does he? Yeah.
I could hear. Yeah, I could clearly hear him. He's going, fuck, and what's going on, man? I rolled my fucking ankle, man. And he's like, I'm in deep shit. He just continued to work through it. I mean, the guy's closing on 60. Some credit has to be given somewhere. And as far as like the 6-man goes, I remember Yaguchi said back there, he goes, how the hell am I going to word this, man? He goes, I'm in deep shit. He goes, I'm the one that's going to have to eat the most shit out of everybody here, man. He goes, because I'm getting on the mic and I'm making this a 6-man. He's like, I'm in a lot of trouble, man. And I was like, dude, screw it. Just say, hey, man, we fight with each other. We've all been at war, but we're FMW. When it comes down to it, we're family. We stick together. And himself, Ichiro Yaguchi, he went to school, Boston U, for music. So he had lived in the States, but it was always his dream to be, to main event and to wrestle in America. And it was the same thing with Hideki Hosaka, who was like, he was given the name by Mr. Pogo too. So it was like, watching him come up through the wing dojo, and as a young boy, I mean, I've known him since, there's only 2 years in between us. So, I mean, I watched him come up just like me, like as a kid. And, like between Hosaka, Yaguchi, Onita, it was like, we're all guys that had feuded with Onita. And, Hosaka goes into the thing with his jaw broken in 2 different places on his birthday, and he has to pull double duty. So, yeah, and when he broke his jaw, Onita's girlfriend got a hold of me on my Facebook, and she goes, listen, we're in a lot of trouble. She goes, Osaka broke his jaw the other night in 2 places. And I go, man, because I was thinking, if you're going to use me, the people are going to dump all over it, because they're going to be like, oh, God, he's just a local Jersey guy, he's an American dude, like, what a ripoff. And I just hoped and prayed that the guy, that Yaguchi was telling me that on the flight, he was literally holding his jaw, because of when the turbulence from the plane would kick in, he was in that much pain. But he didn't want to sell in front of the boys. We all knew that he was in deep, deep trouble. He broke his jaw in 2 places wrestling Hashimoto on a house show.
Yeah.
So, going into it, I'm like, please, just, I knew that I was going to show up, because, I mean, it's my boss. I get a chance to repay him for everything. How kind Onita's been to me over the years has been insane, especially after hearing all the horror stories from people. And it's like, being around law as long as I was like, you're not going to please everybody. Right. Everyone's going to poke holes because you're the boss. They always think that they should make more. But, going into the thing, I was like, I'll do whatever I have to do to repay Onita from, and Onita's telling me, I'll pay you out of my pocket if you come. And I'm like, I don't want to sit around there like an idiot, like not booked. And he goes, who the hell's going to translate all this shit? He's like, my English isn't that good. Right. And I'm like, all right. It's not a problem, man. And I was like, I don't mean to come off like that. And he's like, I don't take it like that. He goes, I know exactly what you're saying. And I go, but I mean, that's ridiculous. If I was given a spot over anybody else, like, come on. Yaguchi is pretty much his bodyguard. Osaka, that's his workhorse. And Pandita's always there for everything Onita does anyway. He's a guy that broke in as Wild Buffalo. Talk about Daigo. He's a guy that broke in as Wild Buffalo over in Tarzan Goto's dojo. Right. That was like right near Asakusa. So, I've known him too for a long time, and he's an office guy from FMW. And of course, Onita's girlfriend wears 100 different hats too, because she sells all his merchandise, does everything. Wow. But I mean, it's there when I see their hard work around me, all those guys I mentioned, the girls, man, it just, it drives me, brings out the fire in me. I mean, Chris Mongol was the head of their ring crew on the road. So it was like, I would see them doing the ring. I'm like, I'm jumping in there. I'm not going to sit around here and be like a lazy, goofy American. Like,
Yeah.
Come on, man. This Mongol's got one half of the pole that she's carrying with Naoshi Sano. It's like, there's no way I'm standing there watching them. Like, no, I'm gonna work as hard, if not harder than them. So I'm luckier to be here than they are.
It's awesome. That's some great stories. I have a few more questions for you. And then you did Sweet Dreams. You came back to the United States. You wrestled Louis Ramos. Was that the first time, maybe at least recently, that you used the Chainsaw Tony gimmick here?
Absolutely, it was the first time, because even all before that, like, leading up to it, like I remember, it's a good friend of mine went to Danny Cage's like Monster Factory, and he was just going there to work out. I wanted to see him just because he's my Memphis friend and all this thing. But I was like, it's so corny, man. I'm not going to walk up there to the Monster Factory, walk in and be like, yeah, I'm Leatherface. Like, who the hell's going to believe that? It's like, and then on top of it, I'm like, I never wanted to be like in your face about it to anybody. I was like, no one's going to care. I mean, I'm like the third one or whatever, it's not like people are always going to hearken the original and be like, oh yeah, what about Mike Kirshner? And I was like, I don't want to be like second, third fiddle here. Like, that just seems ridiculous. But The timing, and not only that, the promotion itself, it all made sense. And going into that match, like really nervous. I was thinking like, man, I better pull through because like, I even heard like Louis' promos, and Louis like, it's my lifelong dream. He was like, Japan comes to me, and he goes, here's a guy that's tagged with Onita and been at war with him all year long. He just felt that, and it had always been my dream internally. I always had like this thing in my mind of whether you live in Memphis and then you come back to Jersey, or especially like Japan and you come back to Jersey, I'm like, what if I had like a really good match and it was like really solid, and everybody could see what maybe these Japanese people thought of me all, saw in me all along, it's like,
right.
It was a lot of pressure for me to carry through. But actually the very first time was right around Christmas time. They had a battle royal, like a Royal Rumble style with all deathmatch weapons. And I was a surprise entrant. And it was like, right. I think Tremont heard from the pop, and he heard from the people like, holy shit, like, you got Leatherface. What?
Yeah.
It shocked a lot of people, and I was blown away by the reaction. And I told Tremont, I was like, dude, I did $300-400 in merch alone. I was like, if I had known that, I would have brought all my other stuff with me, man. Wow. And
it's kind of, I guess, not to cut you off, I just was just going to throw this in there. I guess it's because the United States fans, there's an aura about those monster, gimmicks from Japan. I mean, we see them in the magazines, we see them, back in the day on the tapes and stuff, and now, of course, on YouTube. But, you really never see them live. It kind of reminds me like when Jason from the Wings promotion came to ECW that one time. It's still legendary, that appearance that he had there. I still watch it on YouTube once in a while.
The amazing thing with me, with Jason, is he, like Raphael, isn't one of those people that sees Ken Kataya wrestling as Jason and goes, I'm much better. What's he doing there? Like, it's his blessing. He goes, hey, man, God bless you guys. He goes, I'm old now. And, he's just like, he looks at it and he goes, hey, man, that guy's doing a fantastic job. I've seen his work on YouTube. And I'm like, dude, Ken Kataya is so underrated. It's frightening. But, he'll always be overlooked because he was he's actually behind Tracy Smothers. He's the third one. And it's just like, what do we do as a company? Do we go out and tell people, hey, man, these are not the originals, but hey, come out to see them anyway? It's like people have figured that for themselves, but Ken Kataya has always told me, and I always told him too, I was like, it's even more pressure on you to carry through and to perform. It's even more pressure on you that you got to live up to people that have done it before, but you have to almost be better, otherwise people are just going to forget you and say, Jesus, man, that new Leatherface sucks, or that new Jason's terrible. It's almost all this bizarre pressure to be even better than the originals. And just like, if I fall short of the mark, that's fine, because I know that I put everything. I mean, I'm so blown up by the time the bell rings from running around in circles. And the me, DJ, and Tremont, like Tremont's debut match in Japan, and we're just doing some thinking, and DJ's like, and I was like, you guys better come out first, because I'm just going to be an idiot. I'm going all the way. I got the green light. Hashimoto, the promoter and owner of A-Team, Tokuhiko Hashimoto, he's an old MMA fighter. He had a decent record too, but he runs A-Team, and he ran hand in hand. They were using basically the exact same roster from FMW, and he gave me the green light. So I'm like, all right, I'm tearing this place apart. I'm kicking over all these chairs, and I'm going right through those people, and I'm just going to go nuts, because like, I was like, it's Matt Tremont's debut match. Like, I was so full of energy. I was so full of fire that night. I was like, and then knowing good and well that I wasn't going to start the match, I'm like, cool, now I could really go overboard on the ring entrance.
Right.
It makes it even more fun, right?
Yeah, let me ask you something though. You brought up a few times, being the third Leatherface, and people will bring up, but what about the first one? What about the second one? But the only thing that I'm thinking, it's like, well, people get old. You know what I mean? You can't have the first one forever. You can't have the second one forever. You're the third one, but it goes in succession. Those guys aren't around anymore. They're not, young. They can't do it anymore. So you're doing it now. Don't you look at it that way?
I do, but also too, I'm like, have mercy on somebody. Like, you don't expect Mike Kirshner, like, I've spoken with mutual friends that have told me, because, he's not a very public guy. He's out there on Facebook, but he just likes to put up pictures of his family. He doesn't like to hearken too much on the past,
Right.
But he was going, this is ridiculous. He goes, I'm all natural and I'm 61 years old. And he goes, and just going to the gym right now feels like death. He's like, it's just, he goes, people don't know how strenuous it is on them, and it's like, people are expecting to see the old, the original Leatherface just tearing through people. And I mean, I have to drink a liter of coffee just before I go out, just to have all that energy to, do everything that I wind up doing. And it's like, I can't imagine at 61 years of age, it's like, I wish people would kind of give a guy like that a break,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the arms
At the
just
same
don't have the energy in like they used to, to spin that chainsaw around over and over again. It's just not really natural at that age.
Yeah, which is why, like, I started going back to the gym, because I don't want to show up out there in bad shape. I at least want to maintain and sculpt, legit, I'm 6 foot, 6'1", and legit 245, and I'm natural. It's like, I don't want a giant belly lagging off of me, or, I just know that I'm going to fight to keep weight on when I'm over there in Japan. But, over there, it's like I'm going to the gym, when wrestling's your only form of income, you tend to take it a lot more serious. So over there, I get 3 hours a day in the gym, and a lot of that's cardio. But it's like really, really heavy weights, because, I mean, just to hold the chainsaw, and you got to hold it at a certain angle to get the sparks to shoot. When I put the rebar up against the actual blade, I don't think that people take into consideration just what kind of strength it takes and endurance to be able to pull that off, and that's only during the ring entrance,
Right. Yeah, it's amazing. It sure is. 2 more questions for you, Tony. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say real quick, when you add in the element of age to it, it's like, I wish people would just leave the tender moments alone. Like, that was great then. But if you're expecting the original to do what he did, now that's just kind of ridiculous, and it's, it's the same thing when you still see Dory Funk Jr. wrestling over there. It's like, I know what he looks like, Great Kabuki was another one when he wrestled on Tenru's retirement last year. It was like, I would expect him to look much worse than he did. Age and injuries and everything considered. Same thing with Togo. I mean, who just wouldn't leave it alone, would wrestle in all of his own shows. 65 and, then they're 66 years old when he was still wrestling on the last WWS card. So.
Right. You just brought back a memory for me. I was thinking back to probably about 2006, maybe 2007, when they were doing all these ECW reunions over here in Philly and stuff. And I remember Shane Douglas and them, they did a couple of shows, and the fans were, they were doing chants like, "This sucks" and stuff. And I remember talking to my friends at the time, and I was like, what do they expect? They expect these guys to be doing, these flips and stuff that they were doing 12 years ago. I mean, they're older guys now. They can't do that anymore. Just be glad that they're still there. I mean, take it for what it is. It's a reunion show. It's not 2005 all over again. I mean, 1995, I meant to say.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a bumpy relationship with Wing Kanamura, and it's like, that guy, up until when he had his retirement match, I mean, it's just sad when you see him now. I mean, the guy's half passed out in the locker room, and he just doesn't have the energy, and his body is so broken down. I mean, the guy's getting around on crutches. He can't get around now without the aid of it. And it's like, this guy literally gave everything that his body could give for all this time, and it's like, I understand it drove him into, what he is now, and it's like kind of sad to look at just the deterioration of himself, but that's just how loyal, and that's just how how much these guys want to give of themselves to those promotions. I don't think it's fair, like when fans are, he should just retire, and it's like, granted, it's not what it used to be, but that's why I love the fans in Japan more than anything, because they appreciate your effort, and they know that you're trying your best, regardless of the circumstances. Like, I mean, that kind of thing has just driven me to ridiculous ends. I mean, I could tell you horror stories of my body just betraying me and breaking down on me, and it's like, sometimes you got to look at yourself and be like, do you have a sense of reality? Like, you're a 44-year-old grandfather running around Japan with a chainsaw and a rubber mask, like chasing people everywhere. Like, do you ever want to pull it back sometimes and just try to, or, maybe go to the office and be like, I don't know if I could pull this off tonight. But, then you get messages from people that are angling to try to get themselves work in Japan, and you're like, you know what? I better recommit myself a whole lot more, because there's another guy that just wants it worse than me, and he's had a lot less injuries than me, and I feel fortunate. I might as well just bite it and just give myself, like, just give all that you can, and give the people their money's worth. But it's the fans that get smarky with the retire, or you're washed up, or you're done. It's like, I myself know the day that I'll be retired and done, and it doesn't feel like too far into the future. You know what I mean? Like, I'll know when I look up in that ring and I just look embarrassing. It's like, I don't want to embarrass professional wrestling by just collecting money and doing it, but I think that should be entirely up to the wrestler. It's when the fans are just out and out malicious. It's a perfect case in point. The headhunters were here and did a shot for the people at GCW, and it was just atrocious. And then I guess they just quote unquote lost their shit and told all the fans to screw off and called their opponents backyard wrestlers. It's like, you don't want that to be people's last memory of you. That you sit at the gimmick table like, yo, buy a shirt after you just did all that. It's it's almost too sad. I would never want myself to get to that point. It's like, I don't think I'm a fraction of what the headhunters were and everything that they contributed. And even one of them took a shot at me online. It's like, you're not the real wing heavyweight champion. Way to go. Just because I'm over here and I'm getting steady work, you don't have to dump on the guys that are still trying to give what they can, and do what they can.
Right. It's funny. I remember those promotions that GCW was putting up about them appearing there. I mean, did they wrestle, or did they? I don't remember that show. Did they wrestle, or did they just make an appearance there?
They wrestled, and it led to it was really sad. One of them, he tried to climb up to do the moonsault, and he needed the aid of a pole that they had implanted into the ring post, and the pole bent, and he fell backwards, and it was embarrassing. But I'm like, why lash out at the promotion? And you just instead of throwing a fit, why don't you just be honest and be like, you know what, maybe I'm sorry, we're old, we should just, But instead of lashing out, I think after seeing a lifetime of people just lash out at the most inappropriate times and just have a meltdown, it's like, you don't want to do that to the people that believed in you and bought a ticket, didn't go to the restroom, and actually sat there and watched your match. It's like, I just couldn't do that. That's not me. But the fans were fair. They gave him a shot, but to turn around and bury your opponents and be like, oh, these goddamn backyard wrestlers just sent us in here with, and, a couple of guys that you just lost to. It's like, come on, man, have some dignity. Obviously, you tried to have pride. Maybe that was a curse in the meantime, because too much pride right there. But it's something like that. I would never, in 20 years from now, if FMW in some incarnation was around and I saw a picture of a guy, that would make me smile maybe. If I saw a picture of a guy up there as the FMW champion, good for him. I know the guy's putting in what he can. I don't think I'd bash or, dump all over somebody like, no, we had it really going, man. And you're not the real, then you cross the whole kayfabe line and you're like,
right.
In one sense, you're trying to keep kayfabe. In the other sense, you're like, well, kayfabe just got tossed out the window when I got this guy trashing me. It's like, I just never see myself doing that to somebody,
Right.
It's the whole.
Not the right thing to do.
No, it's the whole. When you see the old scores and they're looking at today's current guys and they go, that's not wrestling, that's garbage. It's like, you don't think. I mean, if you look at like Flair and Steamboat when they were wrestling each other, you know how many old timers like that's too much crap those two are doing. And Jim Cornette there trashing on it. It's like, you don't think some old timer went to Bobby Eaton and flipped out because he jumped off the top rope? It's like, stop that,
Yeah.
Feel
That's
free
funny.
to move on with us.
You totally read my mind right there, because I was going to bring up Jim Cornette to you just now. It's like he has so much experience, he has so much knowledge, he has so much that he's brought to wrestling and that he could even bring to wrestling now and shoots and stuff. But I still love listening to him tell stories and stuff. But the negativity just turns me off. It's like if he didn't have something to do with it, or it's not the 1970s when he liked that type of wrestling. He just kills everything. He doesn't like anything. And I even think he's mellowed a little bit, in the last couple of years. He's not as outrageous as he used to be, but still very negative. For a guy that could bring so much positivity if he wanted to the sport and to the newer wrestlers and the young guys, he just chooses to go the other way. It's just him, I guess.
It's like, it's no different than like, okay, over in Japan, DDT. So much of that is tongue-in-cheek because the Japanese people understand what they're watching. They understand it's funny with Joey Ryan because it's funny. It's a different culture. It's a different way, it's a different approach. Right. It's just the exact same thing with death matches. So many people would, when you see people in America emulating stuff that Onita did, it's like, you don't understand this. This guy, when he was cutting his promos, was saying why he was enduring all this pain and what he's willing to go through. And it's his promotion and how he's a poor man. He's willing to die for his beliefs. And that stuff doesn't translate well to American, audiences, American fans. And especially when you see some of the ridiculous stuff that goes on where guys get hurt for next to nothing and then just cover it all up by saying, yeah, but I'm passionate. It's like, no, if you found the right way or, had the right way to connect with people that understood what you're doing and why you're doing it, it's like world of difference. The thing with Kenny Omega and the little girl, that had built up. And it was a very tongue-in-cheek thing. It was a joke that everybody was in on. And it was the exact same way in Japan when we wrestle a guy like Go Ryuma, who fans were in on the joke. They knew that what they were witnessing was funny in a hokey way of him being the intergalactic champion of the universe. And then here comes the Uchu Meijin Power, along with Super Uchu Meijin Power, along with Super Uchu Meijin Power XXX, and they're alien invaders from outer space. The fans from Japan were in on the joke. They understood how tongue-in-cheek it was. They understood that if Survival Tobita had his own promotion where he wrestled on mats, that the whole idea was, hey, we're too poor to afford a ring. But then Tobita would grab a house mic and be like, I'm going to defend this planet tonight against the lake monster creature who's threatening to take over the world because water makes up 50% of this planet. It's like, and he, like his even his wording was done in a hokey way of, no, that's not true, but it was done in a tongue-in-cheek, funny kind of way, the way that the Japanese people would understand the pageantry of it, that it's so silly and outrageous that it's a joke within a joke that the fans are all in on. it doesn't translate well to when somebody just looks up there and goes, "Oh, that's ridiculous. Joey Ryan's flipping that guy with his dick." It's like, no, it just, maybe it doesn't translate well to American people, or maybe it did translate well. Like, I bought a house, and he's sponsored by what, Pornhub or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not because Joey's such a nice, personable guy. It's not just that. It's just because it's like, there's plenty of matches where he's had flat out great, fantastic matches. And it's like, people know when it comes time for him to tell his joke. It's like, it's no different than the 666 show that I did, where they came to me beforehand, and Naoshi Sano goes, "I understand you could turn it down if you want to." And I go, "No, this is going to be hysterical." So you see Hamano, who's Nisei Leather, and it's he and I out there, like, we made amends. I'm now teamed with the fake Japanese Leatherface. We're going against these guys, and we do the spot where the guy goes to give me a sunset flip. He can't get me, so he pulls down my trunks. Well, he pulls down my pants. Before this, Naoshi Sano came to me, and he goes to hand me a pink thong, and he goes, "You can do this, or you could not want it. If you don't want to do it, yeah, I totally understand." And I'm like, "What are we going to do?" So the spot is, the guy goes to pull the back of my trunks, and then Nisei Leather clotheslines the guy, so clotheslines me, so that, he's trying to save me the embarrassment of getting, hurled over for the sunset flip, only I don't sell it, and I start beating on my chest and yelling at him all crazy. The guy winds up pulling my pants down, and hey, when's the last time you could ever imagine that happening? So it's like, it's a way to take the Leatherface gimmick and do it tongue-in-cheek, like, hey, I have a sense of humor too. Like, I don't always have to take myself that seriously. We all know where we are, and if you've ever seen 666 promotions, it's just so wacky, and it's just so out there. It's again, it's the joke that everybody's in on. It doesn't have to be completely serious. You don't have to murder somebody.
Right.
But I hope like any of that, I hope it resonates. I hope it makes a lot of sense. But for me, it's, there's a place and time for everything. And it's like, with the DDT promotion, they cater to a certain audience. And, FMW, they cater to a certain audience. People know what to expect. They know what they're watching. They're just not going to give you a match and say, "Hey, here's a street fight because, this is it. This is what we do." Every once in a while. Yeah. Every once in a while, they'll hearken to like, all right, we're going to do this FMW style, and you'll see two baby faces in there like, well, this is FMW style, so I got to kick your ass. It's like,
right. Hey, Tony, I have one more question for you before you go. Matthew Burns, Sick Nick Mondo, a good friend of the show. I know he's a friend of yours. Have you ever wrestled him?
No, never. He had retired back in, I guess it was, 03. But, I knew that he was over there. And, I would tell him, there's the one picture I showed him, like, oh, yeah, it's before and after. Like, Pogo and WWS had, he'd come out of pocket through his insurance. And I had, I didn't believe in a mouth guard or anything. And even with a mouth guard, your teeth are still going to get chipped and cracked and all that stuff, just doing a harder style. So I showed him before and after picture, and he was laughing because, Pogo's like, "Okay, you got new teeth now? Go eat steak," because I got a couple of implants put in.
Right.
And Mondo he was blown away. He goes, "He must think an awful lot of you to, get all that work fixed up on you." And I go, "He's just a good guy like that." And it's like at least once a year when he was residing over in Japan, I'd meet up with him, and we would just talk about how ridiculous it is when you watch some guys try to cater to the deathmatch fans and just the extent that they'll go to. And he's always been my voice of reason, as far as, because he never really went back to it. He was the one guy that stuck true to his word, and he only did the one run in for CZW with Little Mondo, and that was pretty much to get Little Mondo to stop doing what he was doing, because he saw he was headed down a very reckless path. But if you watch the trade movie, I mean, its message is strong and it's very powerful. And I wish to God that a lot of guys would take it and just heed to it, that you're not going to be able to do it forever. And it's at times in my life I've used it to combat depression. He went through the same kind of thing. So, you just pretty much you have to get out of it what you want out of it,
Right.
But always trying to keep in mind that it'll never go mainstream. It is always going to appeal to a certain genre fan. And like I said, he's such an incredibly intelligent guy. I mean, it's really something when you watch like Matthew Burns, when you watch Nick Mondo focus on some of the things that he wants to do. The guy's incredible. I mean, very, very talented. And one of the most interesting men you'll ever meet. But I've always been thankful that, he's always been like that voice of reason. Like, I always look at him and be like, you know what, if I don't pull things back, I find myself getting sucked into it, which is another reason that you don't see me often at a CZW or GCW. I just feel like it's just going to pull me in. And the same loyalty I had with FMW would wind up being the same thing with GCW, where eventually I'd be putting my eye back at my head going, all right, are you going to pull back a bit, or are you not going to keep trying to go out of your way to kill yourself to give everybody their money's worth? It's like,
right.
He served as always a constant reminder of, it's better if it's just touch and go versus just flooring it and, draining the tank and then having to deal with the repercussions afterwards.
Right. Yeah, he's definitely a voice of reason, that's for sure, and one of the nicest guys too. I mean, I've had him on a bunch of times. He's a real good friend of the show, and I consider him a friend as well. He's a real nice guy, and it's just amazing. I've told him, I've said in interviews with him, I've said, I still marvel at the fact that you stopped when you stopped. You stopped at a young age when you were, really popular, to that audience, and you never went back. And, like you said, he went back that one night. That was just a one night thing. He didn't wrestle or anything. He just went up there and, it was for the Little Mondo, thing that they were doing. But he's an extraordinary guy, one of the smartest guys too that you're ever going to meet and talk to.
Yeah, and you always look at a guy like that and you say to yourself, like, what's the mentality? Like, why would somebody with that much to offer everywhere, in any aspect of life? I mean, as far as advice, as far as, like, being a true inspiration to a lot of people. You always hear a guy like that, he's humble enough to say, like, you don't have to do, like, I've already done that. You know what I mean? If you want to do that kind of thing, if you want to get your fix, getting the thrill out of the death matches, I mean, it's going to come at a price. And, I mean, I myself, I've racked up plenty of injuries, but it's like I told Matt Tremont, my first time meeting him just a couple of years ago, I told Matt Tremont, I said, I watch the younger generation. I get inspired. Like, you guys are doing stuff that I couldn't do, I couldn't take. I mean, I'm much too old now to continue to do that kind of, I mean, for me, that would be reckless at my age. But, you always draw inspiration from, like, strange places, but you watch some of the younger guys, and that'll inspire me to do a couple extra sets, because I never wanted to look so lethargic and behind in the times, doing the same thing over and over.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing. It's something else.
But you get to the point where along the way you do see some neat stuff that today, a lot of today's guys do. Mance Warner is one of them that, is very near and dear to my heart. I kind of met him a couple months ago, and I'm like, somebody keep an eye on this guy. And I hope to God that he doesn't get led astray, because his name is just going to get bigger and bigger as time goes on. And I just don't want to see him do anything that would just permanently damage. I think, like, to another good guy, another newer era guy that's being discovered, and he's been on one hell of a roll since, is Joey Janela. And you could hear him say, you know, hey, I did that one crazy bump and I got noticed. And you know what? For the last 2 years, I think it's been like 2 years, he has literally went all over the world on another man's dollar. But he had also told people, I'm not doing that again. You know, I almost lost my thumb.
Yeah, he's very talented, and he kind of has that Shawn Michaels kind of look and attitude to him, where, you know, I think he'd do very well in WWE, to be honest. And, you know, he's smart to kind of pull it back a little, and he's getting booked everywhere. So it's like he really doesn't have to do that. And you know, and then at the same time, you think of John Zandig. I know he fucked up his back in that same spot, and you know, you really don't hear too much from him, you know, since then. But hopefully he's doing all right. So, you know, it's that night really, you know, turns two people's lives, you know, in different directions. I mean, not to say that John's doing bad, but I know he did hurt his back, and you know, who knows if he'll ever wrestle again or really appear on a regular basis again. And Janela, who, you know, thankfully survived that spot and only really messed up his thumb, has blown up. Whether it was just from that spot, who knows? I think he was so talented he was going to blow up anyway, though. But it didn't hurt him.
He's
I guess
one of those guys too that when you talk to him or that kind of, you interact with him. It's just like the Young Bucks. They have a funny, like, it's not even like snarky or anything like that. They just have like the perfectly funny, wise ass sense of humor, which is what I love. I can't stop laughing at that. You know, it's like some things, the way that they're approached and the way that they're said or the way that they're talked about is just hysterical, to where it hits like on all cylinders with me. I'm like, that's too funny not to draw attention to.
Yeah.
There's a couple guys that did a podcast. Where they had went down to, you know, the Carnage Cup. I don't know if you've seen or heard a lot of those clips or anything, but the one guy wanted to go just because it was so bad it was good, and they did a podcast, and I literally had to translate that entire podcast to like all the FMW guys, because they couldn't understand what me and Yaguchi were hysterical laughing about on the bus. And I go, this is the funniest thing. It's like this guy's covering it, and he's just telling the truth about everything that he's witnessing. And it's just like, to me, anybody else could bash or slander. That's you know, that's your opinion or whatever. But when you make it that interesting and or funny, you've got my entertainment here. Like, I'll put that over. I'll laugh at it. I'll be like, that's funny, or that's creative, or, you know, it's the spin that they put on, or the jokes that they come up with, or just the way that they talk about things that they've seen is just so hysterical and so interesting. You can't help but draw attention to it. Well, it's guys like the Young Bucks and guys like Janela. When you see them interact with people, you know, with some of the crazy stuff that people say, or people try to get their eye or get their ear, you know, and just the way that they'll shoot down some things, you know, it's just beyond hysterical. You know, it's like another guy like that was like Danny Havoc. Just some of the answers he would come up with to some of the criticism he would get was just priceless. You know, it's like I never really thought about it like that. Like I couldn't come up with anything that funny on the fly. Like, this guy did it.
Yeah, some great characters in wrestling, that's for sure. All right, Tony. I'm unfortunately, as much as I'm enjoying this, I'm gonna have to end this only because I only have 2 minutes left on the stream. So I don't want to just cut off in the middle of you talking. So, but man, this has been a fun interview. I definitely want to do it again. That's for sure down the line. And again, it's been a pleasure having you on, and thank you.
Yeah, I tend to ramble, so you wouldn't have. You'd have been better off on time if I wasn't so socially awkward when I had to get like every thought out of my head. I apologize for that. But,
no, it was great. I enjoyed every minute of it.
Yeah, this whole thing felt like it went by in 2 minutes, so that ought to tell you something right there.
It was a great interview. And like I said, I wanted to bring up some stuff that, you know, where it's not just the same stories that you've done on other podcasts. I think we definitely hit it out of the park. Some very interesting stuff, and you know, we'll definitely do another one, and we'll hit other topics and stuff, because there's definitely some more stuff I want to, you know, get your thoughts on.
Yeah, I always have to thank someone like you just for giving me that platform, and I've listened to other shows that you've done. Of course, I listened to the one that Matthew Burns came out with and that kind of thing. So, I was a big fan of it. I was kind of shocked when you hit me up. I was like, wow, these guys, holy cow. It's like,
I have to be honest with you. I've seen you on social media for a while. I didn't hit you up. I wasn't sure you wanted to do it. So I was like, I'm doing this wrestling thing at the end of the month with the Wrestling Estate, and I was like, let me see if I could get him on. Yeah, they're telling me 90 seconds it's going to cut off. But yeah, so I definitely took the shot, and I'm glad you heard that, right? And I'm glad that you accepted, because this has been a blast, and we'll definitely do another one. I definitely want to do another one.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to reminisce. If it's the right platform and the right people, oh yeah, I have a blast. It's just too many untold stories, and and just because of Wikipedia hasn't put out all the actual facts on me doesn't mean that they're not out there. I mean, I have a pile of DVDs to still go through with all kinds of weird handheld stuff of mine. So, but I thank you so much again, man. I mean, it's truly been great. Came up with a lot of stuff out of left field.
Yeah, definitely. We'll do a part 2 in the very near future, in the next couple of months. That's for sure. Thanks again, Tony.
Yeah, Mo. Thank you so much, man. I truly do appreciate you. Okay.
All right, you got it.
You've been listening to Team Left Jab Boxing Radio. Check out our site at www.leftjaballnightboxing.com for the latest interviews, real boxing minds, real boxing breakdowns.
Welcome to the Total Wireless store, where total confidence awaits.
I need to keep up with my teens this summer without sweating high cell phone bills.
Don't worry, you got this with Total Wireless. We have plans to fit all your family's needs starting at just $25 on the nation's best 4G LTE network.
I won't miss a thing.
Now you can focus on the important stuff, like arguing about curfew.
Discover the Total Wireless stores and get total confidence. The latest phones, the best network, all at great prices. Now open in New York. Refer to the latest terms and conditions of service at TotalWireless.com.
What a matchup!
And what a team, Mike. Metro PCS and the iPhone SE for $0 on a network that covers 99% of people in the U.S. Oh, impressive.
Play with the best. Switch to Metro PCS and get a 32-gig iPhone SE for $0. Metro PCS. Coverage not available in some areas, plus sales tax and $10 activation fee. Claim based on talk and text. Not valid for active numbers currently on a T-Mobile network or active on Metro PCS in the past 90 days. See store for details and terms and conditions.